Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad you're joining us. Considering that wherever you are in the world, I know that things are probably not only hectic in our personal lives with the topic at hand, but also just knowing that severe weather issues are really affecting people all over the country of the United States as well as likely the world. I'm currently residing. My name is Reed, and I'm the founder of Grief Refuge, and I'm glad you're here with us today. And I'll be introducing, our wonderful presenter and expert of our topic today, Lisa Marie Conine, in just a minute. But what I do want to say is I'm currently residing in the Portland area, and if you are seeing my screen as glitchy, and if sometimes my sound cuts out, I sincerely apologize. There's nothing I can do about that at the moment because the weather is so bad in the Portland area. It's affecting, the internet connectivity. And so my wife and I, we've been without power and we've been without water for over 36 hours. We're at a friend's house and there's probably dozens of devices connected to the internet here. So this is this is how we roll. This is how we roll in life, and this is how we roll in grief. So just want to share that brief caveat with you for a moment. But today we have a very special topic, and for me personally, I'm super excited about what Lisa Marie will be covering in our time together because it's what I've said to Lisa and what I've hopefully you've heard on the Grief Refuge podcast with Lisa Marie's interview is that this topic isn't talked about enough, honestly. And it's a purely natural and effective way to help with feeling supported in grieving. And the intention now is to learn a bit more about how that works. And so, what I'm going to do is ask for you to utilize the chat message. And we have Lisa Marie Conine with us of Beloved Gateway. And she's amazing and she's very soft and she knows her stuff. And so it's going to be a great learning experience together. So without further ado, I introduce you to Lisa Marie Conine. And when you have any questions, just submit them in the chat because I'll be on the side, kind of managing the chat messaging. And there will be times to check in, and Lisa will be able to provide some responses to your questions. So that's kind of like our little structure, our little format today. And so, Lisa, the Zoom floor is yours. Welcome.
Amazing, Reid. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Marie, and I'm so excited to be here with you all to be talking about plants for grief, plant medicine for grief. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you to Reid for soldiering through to still put this on tonight so that we could all gather. I had no idea that that was happening on his end. I'm in a different location, so just want to say thank you for that. And I'm so happy that we all are here tonight to explore this topic. Um, I'll just share something very brief about myself before we get into the topic. My background is in the plant world, in plant medicine work. I'm also a yoga instructor and a death doula. And so over the last few years, I've really been starting to bring all of these tools together and seeing how they all support each other in the space of death and grief. So I'll get into that so much more, but that is the realm that I hang out in, and I'm so excited to be offering a little bit of that to all of you tonight. But I think before I get into anything else, I'd love to guide us through just a very gentle opening, grounding practice so that we can all come into a bit of cohesion together as a group before we dive into the realm of plants. Um, so wherever you are, just take a second to get comfortable in whatever seat or posture you're in. And if you're up and moving around, that's okay. You can do this or not. But if you want to join us, you can find a seat that's comfortable. You might have your feet flat on the earth, or maybe you're sitting cross-legged. I'm sitting on the ground. I enjoy sitting on the ground. So just find a position where you feel stable and supported. And you might just start to lengthen through the spine a little bit. So you might imagine that someone's lifting up your crown like it's attached to a string, just creating a little bit of length and space in the body. And what we're going to do first is just, oh, my earrings are making a noise. Sorry, these are my favorite earrings and they wanted to join me tonight. I'll try to get them out of the way. um, Okay, so what we're going to first do is before closing our eyes and going internal, we're going to take a moment to orient to our external environment. Thank you, Julie. Um, and I really love to do this with folks, this practice. It's called orienting to safety in our external environment. So, what we're going to do very quickly is just start to glance around your environment. So, take your eyes off of the screen and start to look around the room that you're in, the space that you're in, and see if you can name in your mind three objects that you notice. So I'm seeing a plant, I'm seeing a blanket, I'm seeing the window, right? Just start to kind of name where you are in time and space. And what this does is it communicates to the body and the nervous system that, oh, I'm actually safe right now. You're collecting a little bit of data that your physical body is safe so that we can relax a little bit more together. So just take another moment, look around your space, just notice where you are. You might even say to yourself, I am safe. I'm in this room, in this place. And once you've done that to the degree of your satisfaction, you can start to gently close your eyes. And we're just going to take a few grounding breaths together. So, again, whenever you feel comfortable, close your eyes and maybe place your hands somewhere on your body. I always like to do one hand on the belly, one hand on the chest. But maybe for you today, it's hands on your thighs, whatever feels good. I want you to just start to notice your breath coming in and out of your nose. So, specifically, seeing if you can notice the sensation as it touches your nostrils, the air, or the sensation of your chest rising and falling. And just take a few breaths here. Great. And as you're doing that, noticing that sensation, I want you to also bring your awareness to the seat beneath you. So just noticing the chair or the ground and the fact that you're being held up by something, that you are supported. So again, just taking a couple breaths here to notice the breath entering the body and to also feel the support of your seat. And as you're here, I want you to tune into what brought you here tonight. So it might be a question, a curiosity, an intention that you have for joining tonight's call. But just see if you can bring that into your mind, into your heart. Great. And then from here, we're going to all take 3 cleansing breaths together. So I want you to inhale really deeply through the nose and exhale out of the nose. Exhale, let something go. One more here, the biggest breath you've taken all day. And exhale out of the mouth. Great. We'll take our hands together, give them a little rub, generate a little bit of heat. And then one last thing here with these warmed up hands, just take your hands and place them either over your face or over your heart and just welcome some of that energy into the body. We're coming into the body, landing into this moment so that we can receive what we're here to receive. Great. Now just take your time coming back to the screen in whatever way you want. But yeah, that was a really important thing that we just did because it's one of the foundational skills that we'll be talking about tonight as it relates to utilizing plants as medicine. So it requires us to come into our bodies and slow down a little bit so that we can hear what these plants are trying to share with us. So I started us there for a reason so that we could all come together and start to feel what this is like. But great, let's just jump right in. So as I said, I've been working with plants for over a decade now as medicine, right? That is my orientation, is that plants are medicine. But what I'm going to introduce tonight is also another orientation which takes it a step further, and that is the understanding that plants are guides or allies on our journey, seeing plants as teachers. And so it's been my lived experience, but also my professional experience that plants can be very powerful guides and teachers in the process of grief. As you're moving through an experience of grief, of transformation, of loss, of sorrow, plants can have a really powerful impact on your journey. And so that is what tonight is about. So, we're going to be talking about how, again, plants are guides and teachers. And this is a little bit of a bit of a different orientation than a more prescriptive model, which would be to take this plant or take this herb or this plant for anxiety, right? Like the prescriptive model is with certain medications. That certainly does work, and we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, how certain plants can be beneficial for certain symptoms. But I want to start with this larger view and offer this orientation to you as an option, as an invitation, which is to not only look at plants from the lens of how they can support a certain symptom, but to see them as guides, as allies, as teachers. That's language you're going to hear me use a lot. So that's the first invitation. The next invitation is that from that place, seeing them as such, as a teacher or a guide, we then want to look at how can we build relationship with these plants so that they can support us in our experience of grief as we're moving through change, transformation, loss, etc. And when I think about building relationships with plants, I think about it in the same way as building relationships with humans. So that can take time and it requires the ability to slow down, to listen to them, to hear what they have to say, to offer things in exchange, to be in a reciprocal relationship with them. So that's kind of like the second pillar, right? And then the third piece that I really want to offer to you is that from that place, we can then look at how we can build practices into our lives where we can open up our receptivity to communicate with plants. So the reason why I say this is because sometimes they aren't super obvious in their communication, or um, sometimes it can be a little hard to hear how they want to relate to us. And there's a number of reasons for that. Um, One would be that we are living in a society and a world that has pushed plants and nature to the side. And we're in a time of resurgence, of remembrance, of how we are so interconnected to the plant kingdom and the natural world. But there's like a de-armoring and a shedding process that we have to go through so that we can listen to them and hear them. And for me, being able to listen and hear plants is one and the same as being able to listen to my own body. So I've found that this process of working with plants in this way has also allowed me to hear what's going on in my own body and in my own heart at the same time, right? It's kind of like a feedback loop. Like as you have more capacity to hear your own body, you can hear plants a little bit better, and then plants help you hear your body better and your heart better, and it just feeds each other. So these three ways of relating, or kind of like a foundation of seeing plants as guides and teachers, seeing it as an opportunity to build relationship, and then doing that through developing practices that can help open up your channel, so to speak, open up your body, your ability to hear and connect with them, is for the purpose of knowing that you're not alone in your grief journey. Oftentimes with grief, probably every single time with grief, at least in my own lived experience, I feel a loss of connection when I'm grieving. And what plants in this way have done for me has made me feel not alone. When there isn't someone that I can talk to for whatever reason that day, or something going on where humans aren't able to support me, I've been able to drop into a practice with plants that I have a relationship with. And many times I've experienced communication and medicine from them that is beyond what, any human could give me. So that's like the intention as to why I wanted to share this. It's because it's been extremely profound in my own life, but also for the folks that I support and friends and family, etc. So again, we're working from that foundation, and from that place, we can then look at certain plants that can be supportive specifically for the grief journey, which I'm going to get into a little bit in a moment. But one other thing that I want to say is if if you only walk away with one thing, it would be this sentence, which is to remember that plants can help us digest grief and stuck emotions. So they actually can help clear it from your body, and not to get rid of it or to shame the grief or to change yourself or fix yourself, but to rather do their role in a really important process that is a process of nature, that is the life, death, rebirth cycle, right? Plants can help us do that. So even day to day, if you have something, you're feeling an experience of grief, and you work with a plant and it helps to just digest and break down some of that just for that day. And then you can go to sleep and wake up somewhat anew, right? You might have the same experience of grief the next day, but this is kind of a cycle and a rhythm that we can get in with our bodies and with plants, knowing that we can have support to process some of this, that our mind doesn't have to do it all itself, that our bodies can do it. Plants can help us process some of this, and we can feel more supported in the process. So, with all of that, um, I wanted to share a couple of examples of plants so that, again, if you walk away tonight, you could try something tomorrow with a certain plant ally. Um, and then after I do that, we're going to then have opportunity for a short little practice, basically just offering an opportunity for you to have a little bit of self-inquiry about this. And then we're going to have a moment for sharing in groups so that everybody can get a chance to speak if they want to and share a little bit of their experience. And then we'll come back as a group and have some group sharing and any questions that people might have. And this model of leaning on those three pillars, I guess you could say at the beginning, and then looking at specific herbs, and then having a chance for community sharing is the model that we're going to be implementing for the 4-week course that's going to be diving into all of this deeper, which is on plant medicine for grief. So there's more to come if there's uh, something in you that feels sparked by this. But regardless, I wanted everyone to experience some of it tonight so that you could walk away and have tangible tools to apply on your journey. So, in terms of categories of herbs and plants that can support people for grief, I like to also share like a caveat first, which is that putting plants in these types of categories can easily get us into that prescriptive model again. So saying like, oh, I'm just going to reach for this plant to address this symptom and not have a relationship with it at all. That can easily happen when we're like, this plant is good for your nervous system, right? But I broke it into some categories because it's easier for our mind, right? Our mind likes to categorize things. So just hold both things as true. And also, if you're in a place in your grief journey where you need to reach for the plant and that's it, you need to feel better in this moment, that's also okay too. I have many moments like that in my life where I'm not particularly able to speak to the plant or listen to it. I just need my anxiety to calm down, right? So we hold all of it at once. We're able to do it all. This is the invitation to be able to maybe have capacity for a little bit more. So with that said, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about 3 different categories. So one is heart openers or heart tonics. So plants that can really work on our heart space, but also the physical muscle of our heart. So that's category number one. The second category is nervous system supportive plants, or nervines is the other term that people will use in the herbal realm. And then I'm going to be talking about nutritive herbs, so herbs that are really nutrient dense for the body. And what I'm going to be doing is in each category, talk about one plant that you're probably familiar with, and then another plant that you might not be as familiar with, just as offerings to start to experiment with. And then again, we'll get into a little bit of self-inquiry after that. But I want to start with heart openers. And so the first plant I want to talk about are roses, or the flower rose. So I'm sure you all are very familiar with roses. They are one of the most ancient plants on the planet. Um, they are just a symbol for love and for the heart, right? We see that in our collective culture when roses are used on Valentine's Day and somebody gives someone roses when they want to show them that they love them, right? Like this is in the collective consciousness, even if it's like not super, people aren't super aware of it. Like it's a symbol. We see a rose, we think love, right? But you can go even deeper with roses. And another little anecdote that I like to share is that roses, yeah, have a really long history as being used for prayer or meditation. So if you know of like rosary beads or prayer beads, it's said that that concept actually originated from people stringing together rose petals into like a garland, and they would use that and pray with the flowers and then offer them to goddess temples, areas in the earth that they were worshiping, etc. And it was a big part of our earth-based spiritual practice as a part of like human history, right? Um, and then now we have rosary beads. And then we also just have roses that are around all the time that just really speak to the energy of the heart. So the way that I like to work with roses is in many ways, but number one would be as a heart soother. So to me, when I engage with roses, it feels like a balm to the heart. So a really simple way that you can work with roses would be to just get some dried leaves, or excuse me, petals, and have some rose tea and just create a small ritual for yourself where you maybe light a candle and you brew the tea and you sit and you actually feel what it feels like to welcome that plant into your body. Very simple, right? Um, Another idea is you can have even just a bouquet of roses in your space. And instead of just placing them there and just forgetting about it, starting to tune into them and what their presence does to your space. So, if any of you listen to the podcast episode, you may have heard some of these recommendations that I shared with Reed, but there's a number of ways that you can introduce plants into your space and into your body from the perspective of welcoming them in as a teacher. So, welcoming them in as a tea into the body or putting them in your space and then asking them to help you, asking them to speak to you. And yeah, I could go on and on for an entire hour just about roses, but I will say one more thing about them. They definitely wanted to be here tonight. I was walking on the beach the other day and an entire bouquet of roses washed up on the shore in front of me. So they are now sitting here in front of me, covered in sand, but I rescued them and they are here tonight. So they will talk to you, they will get your attention, they will just show up out of nowhere. So roses, right? It's an accessible plant that we all have around us most of the time or can get. So that's one that you could really start to work with if you are feeling like, wow, my heart could use a soothing balm. So that's rose. Another great heart opener is cacao. So some of you might be familiar with this, some of you might not be, but cacao is chocolate. However, there are specific ways that it can be cultivated and processed so that it is for ceremonial use. And so you can basically drink cacao and have a little bit of a ritual or have a ceremony. If any of you have gone to a cacao ceremony, you know what I'm talking about. But it is an experience where you can be in communion with a plant and it actually has physical benefits for your heart and also produces feel good hormones in your body so that you get into a frequency of love, is one way to say it. Another way to say it is that it can be classified as an empathogen, which means it supports you in connecting to your empathy. And so cacao is one. And you can even start to just experiment with this, or even just think back in your mind if you've ever eaten a piece of really dark chocolate and had just a piece of it and then noticed how you felt afterwards. You might have felt a little like, oh, I feel kind of happy now, or I feel a little energized, right? There's obviously a little bit of caffeine in cacao, but there's many things that are happening physiologically that bring us into our heart. So for heart openers, again, I wanted to share with you rose and then also cacao as um, just an invitation. And if one of those, if you noticed when I was talking about one of those or any of these that I'm going to talk about, if you feel like a twinge in your body or like a piece of excitement moving through you, that might be the plant kind of tapping on your shoulder, that it wants to talk to you. So just kind of pay attention to that as I continue to move through. But I'm going to move us on to nervous system supportive herbs or nervines. And the first one I'm going to talk about is chamomile. So chamomile flowers, you can have them as chamomile tea. And I'm sure most of you have heard of this, have maybe already communed with chamomile many times. I say chamomile and I introduce it here because it is a plant that I think is often overlooked as a powerful medicine because it's so commonly used. Like people drink it before bed, makes you kind of sleepy, whatever, move on with yourself, right? But it can have a really powerful impact on supporting your nervous system and your sleep schedules, but also, again, communicating to that plant and its spirit, and it can have a really gentle effect on the body. And so, if you feel like you're in need of like a gentle hug, right? You might lean into chamomile and you might turn that into a ritual every night before bed that you drink that chamomile tea and you imagine that you're receiving a big warm hug, especially if you're heartbroken right now and you need a hug. Ask for that plant to give you a hug every single night and see how you feel. Again, it's not going to fix everything, but it might give you even 5 minutes of feeling held, feeling supported. And that's, again, chamomile tea, we can find it anywhere. So that can be really supportive for your nervous system. I won't get into all the details of how it supports our nervous system, but I'm sure most of you know that it can be relaxing, right? Kind of calm the nerves. Another plant for that that might be not as well known is a plant called skullcap. So same thing, you can utilize skullcap in a tea form or a tincture form, and it can be really supportive for anxiety, especially intense anxiety. And this could be something that you utilize a couple times a day if you're experiencing severe anxiety chronically, right? So skullcap is a really lovely um, guide for supporting the nervous system. And it's funny because this category I was only gonna say two, but then Tulsi was like, don't forget about me. So I'm gonna also say Tulsi or holy basil, which is also in another category that, I'm not gonna get into tonight, but adaptogens. I think most of you have probably heard of those. Tulsi slash holy basil, depending on whatever you want to call it, is classified as that. And so the way that I orient to adaptogens is that they help our body be more resilient to stress and that they help our body find homeostasis, right? And equilibrium again. So Tulsi really wanted me to name that. So Tulsi is another good plant. And then I want to talk about nutritive herbs. So, again, these are herbs that can be nutrient dense. And the reason why I'm bringing in this category, so I think the first two are obvious, right? When we are dealing with grief, our heart is broken. It's being broken open, it's being shattered, it's being stomped on, it's being all of these things. And so, heart openers, heart soothers, heart tonics are really important to have in your routine to be in relationship with. Soothing the heart makes sense. And then nervous system support is crucial because going through any type of grief or loss usually means that we've experienced a trauma, and that can be really dysregulating to the nervous system. And so, having support to allow the nervous system to come into a little bit of regulation, even for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right, can be supportive for our overall health. Then, nutritive herbs, the reason why I'm bringing those is because a number of reasons. Number one, as many of you might know, when you're dealing with grief, you might not have an appetite at all for a long time, or you might be completely starving at certain points of your grief journey. But the reason why this is happening is because it's not only the mind that has to process what we've gone through, it's our body. Our body is trying to process the experience, and that takes a lot of energy. And if we don't have an appetite, and we're not able to nourish ourselves, we can become depleted, which then can compound the other symptoms that we're having from grief. So it can be really helpful to have some herbs on hand that we can rotate into our bodies to replenish ourselves, especially if we don't feel like eating in a certain moment. So the first herb I want to name is nettle. So nettle is incredibly nutrient dense. And what I love about nettle is that it's kind of, especially for women, it feels like such a strong ally. It's really supportive for women as they move through their cycle each month and making sure that we have the nourishment that we need. Um, but nettle is a great ally to have. You can make an infusion where basically you would infuse water with the herbs. You would do like a quart of water and you can do like a handful. It's always nice to do like kind of like old school measurements. So you can do it like a handful of your own handful of herbs is like usually the amount that your body would want and require. So you can measure the herbs by taking a scoop of nettle, putting it in about a quart of water, and doing like a 24-hour infusion. And then you strain out the plant material, and then you have a really, yeah, you spell that nettle, nettle or stinging nettle. And so you could, yeah, thanks, Reed. So you could make that infusion and then you could be kind of sipping on that a little bit every day and introducing nutrients to your body. Things like iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, zinc, really important amino acids, like these things that our bodies need to function well, that our brains need to function well, is all present in nettle. So that's a really strong ally to have. And then another one I want to offer is oat straw or oat tops. So this comes from oats, but there's the straw that you can ingest, the oat straw, and then the oat tops, which also is called milky oats. And these can be really nourishing to the cells of your body, really nutritive, but also supportive for the nervous system. So, excuse me, one thing you'll know if you are in this realm or you start to learn more or you join us in the course is that a lot of these herbs like function as many things, right? Like rose can be a heart opener, but it can also be supportive to your nervous system. Milky oats can be deeply nourishing to the body and support your nervous system. So they all have multiple jobs and functions that they can execute. But again, we categorize things just so we can try to understand them at first. Um, so those are examples of the three categories that we'll start to play with. And I hope that, again, one of those maybe jumped out at you, or maybe you have a little bit of curiosity about one of those plants, or maybe you're already in deep relationship with one of those plants, which is amazing and perfect no matter where you are. But again, my hope is that you walk away with this, with the ability or the opportunity to start to introduce these into your life to support you in your grief journey. And so, what we're going to do now is I'm going to offer you a little bit of moment of self inquiry now that I've thrown a lot of info at you. We're going to let it settle a little bit and then inquire about where we're at on our own journey. I'm going to guide you through that, no worries. And then we'll move into a little bit of group sharing. Um, Sound good to everybody? Is everybody still with me? Cool. All right. So if you have a journal, that's helpful. If you don't, no worries. But we're just going to take a few minutes to come into our own experience. So you might look away from the screen, you might close your eyes just to start to orient inward. And I'm just going to ask you two questions. And the first question is to just ask yourself, where are you in your grief journey? And there's no right or wrong answer for this. It's just a check in. So you'll just take a moment and you might write some things down of today I feel like shit, excuse my French, or I feel this, and that, right? It's just a check-in and for you to name and see where you are on your journey. And then I also want you to take a moment to tune into your relationship with plants. It might not be any of the plants that I listed, but maybe there's a certain plant that really speaks to you. Maybe there's a tree that you really love in your yard or your local park or something. But just kind of check in and see, do I have a relationship with plants? Do I want one? It's okay if you don't. And just check in. So we're checking in on our grief journey. We're checking in on where we're at with plants right now in relationship to them. So just take a minute or two and just gather that data. Great. And then I lied. I'm actually going to give you one more invitation, take it or leave it. But one more thing you could ask yourself is, yeah, is there something based on the information you just gathered about yourself, and then also based on the information that I've given you tonight? Is there something you would want to put into place after you get off this call tomorrow in the future in relation to supporting yourself through your grief journey, becoming closer to plants, nourishing your body, whatever it might be? Is there one, like, yeah, action step you might want to take or that you feel called to explore? Cool. And so from here, we're now going to offer you all the opportunity to jump into some breakout rooms where you can share what you just collected with your group. And before you freak out, I know like breakout rooms, it's like, oh my God, no, I have to like talk to someone. That's totally cool if you don't want to, no pressure at all. But if you have been feeling like you want to be witnessed in your journey, this is a really great moment to give that to yourself. So basically, you'll just be in breakout rooms. I think we're doing groups of four-ish, so small groups. And you'll just all have a few minutes to just share whatever you want to share. It could be the prompts, like responses to the prompts that I gave you, or maybe a thought about everything else that was shared, or maybe something else, right? But we're gonna just all take a few minutes to share. And if you can't join a group, that's fine. You can just stay back here. Again, no pressure, but we want to offer this. And then after that, we'll come back and have some time for Q&A or a little bit of wider group sharing. So thanks
Okay,
for,
Lisa, I'm going to chime in. So as far as it's obviously going to be some sharing in the breakout rooms, but is there a specific question that participants can address as they share with their fellow participants?
yeah, so if you want to share your response to the questions that I asked you about where you are in your grief journey, where are you with relation to plants, that's a great prompt. Um, you could also share the thing that you might be ready to implement after this, or the thing that inspired you, or the plant that is coming to your attention, right? Um, this is just an opportunity to say hi to our fellow humans um, and share.
Okay, great. So there will be around 4 people to a room. And as Lisa Marie mentioned, you're going to have to accept that breakout room invitation. So if you don't want to join the breakout room, just don't accept it. And then also the other thing I was going to say is there will probably be about 2 to 3 minutes of sharing per person. So please be conscientious of that so that everybody gets an opportunity to share whoever's in your breakout room. So enjoy, and I'll ping you with about a minute to share. So, and remember to unmute yourselves in the breakout rooms too. All right, have fun.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome back, everyone. I hope that that was supportive. We've got a couple minutes left. I'm happy to hang out a couple minutes after the hour if there's questions that people have. But we wanted to open it up to the larger group and give people an opportunity to either share a reflection or ask a specific question. And I know that there were a couple of questions that came through in the chat too, so I'll try to address those as well. And then yeah, we'll be putting in the chat the invitation to join us for the 4-week group container where we will deepen into building relationships with plants, being in practice, being held in community as we move through a process of grief. So yeah, I'd love to, like I said, open up the floor if anyone has a question or reflection.
And if you do, please, there's this thing in reactions where you can raise your hand. There's a little button if you press reactions. I'd love to hear that. Hey, we got our first. All right, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and fire away.
Ooh, okay. So my name's Solomon. I had the lovely opportunity to talk to Mary. Screen name is Melinda Lork. And while we were talking, we just mused about how inflammation has come up, both in our personal lives, but I also had more time to share how I watched some of my elders die a bit more painfully because of arthritis and osteoporosis. And I work in pharmacy, so I understand there are a lot of contradictions or that can lead to more inflammation with medication treatment and especially pain relief. So I was excited to come in today and hear that being like a very common theme to the plants, at least the ones that spoke to me, nettle and oat straw, because your body, when it's grieving, is in a heightened emotional state, might perceive the stress, and then it just starts firing off a kit of things to tend to that and to just kind of reduce, to not ignore, like wholly suppress it. But like you said, Lisa Marie, I can't not say her name together. I don't know if that's correct, but it's good to try to ease, because stress can also lead to other illnesses that can just make either dying more painful or like living more exhausting. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hear you.
All right, we got another question or a sharing from Britt. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, Britt.
I'm hoping, is my microphone working?
It is.
Okay, because it wasn't working in the breakout room for a moment, so I almost panicked there. I don't have as much feedback. That was like really nice and profound what was just shared, but I actually just had a comment and I wanted to share something with the group throughout the course of the session. Some of the subject matter really reminded me of a book that I've been reading, and it's really, really wonderful, and I just wanted to share that to the rest of the group if anyone wanted. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if anyone has heard of this book, but it's by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and it's about the kind of literal weaving of like indigenous wisdom, science, and the teaching of plants is like what is on the cover of the book. So I can put it in the chat if people are interested, but it really does kind of speak to the reciprocity of the relationship between humans and plants, and like how we really do exist for each other's mutual benefit, and we have like an obligation to plants and the world as their caretaker, and they do kind of reciprocate that love to us in all of the kind of benefits that Lisa Marie had shared, and then of course other things. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's one of my favorite books, and I think it's so good.
It is so good.
Like crying every chapter.
Yeah. Yes,
Thank you, Britt.
literally crying every chapter.
Highly recommend.
Thank you, Britt. Please throw the
Yeah,
link
thank you.
to the chat. And Salome mentioned, for everybody listening and not seeing the chat, there's a free audio version on YouTube. So thanks for that too, Salome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. No more, looks like no more raising hands. So Lisa Marie, there's a few minutes to answer some questions.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a couple.
Sam had a question about thyroid medication. And I'm actually going to ask if we can generalize this and backtrack it just a little bit. And Sam, if you're still on the webinar, I don't mean to, do this, but I'm going to rephrase the question as far as, what are, obviously everybody should consult with their medical doctor, their primary physician. But Lisa Marie, with your expertise, what are some of your thoughts in regards to people who are on prescription medication and are exploring using natural plants and herbs?
Yeah, so exactly what you said, Reed. Everyone should consult their doctor before including certain herbs into their regimen. Um, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not able to tell you if you have a contraindication with certain medications. And so that would just be step one. And you can see that as part of just the relationship building, because if one plant there's a contraindication, what's incredible about the plant kingdom is that if one plant you can't use, there's another one out there that you can be in relationship with. We are given so many allies and options. The planet is so abundant with plants that can support us. So if there is one that you find isn't the best with a certain medication that you're on, don't get discouraged. There's other ways that you can work with these plants. And when you all were in the breakout room, Reed asked me a question about engaging our senses and kind of working with plants on multiple levels. And so another way you can think about this is that, let's say if you are advised not to ingest a certain plant into your body, like through eating it, right, or drinking it, you could use it topically and engage in it that way, or like have a bouquet of it if it's a certain flower or something. Like there's other ways that we can be in relationship with plants, or even like this is making me think of braiding sweetgrass. You might just see that plant in the wild, learn what it looks like, and give it love when you see it. And that would be you being in relationship with it. So my suggestion to you is obviously talk to your own medical care before moving forward if you're worried about something. And then to also get creative and be curious about the other ways that you can be in relationship with certain plants and receive their medicine, their wisdom, etc.
Okay, great. Then there was a wonderful question too about getting anything you might recommend to help get deep sleep or REM. I know that when grieving, sleep is really difficult to obtain, especially great sleep. I mean, you get some good sleep when you're grieving, it feels like you won the lottery. But is there anything that comes to mind as far as helping with that?
Yeah, so that would be pretty much the whole category of nervous system supportive plants and nervines. So I recommended two or just introduced two. Um, but that's something that you could start to research is what plants and herbs are supportive to regulating my nervous system and to calming my nervous system, especially at night. And one thing to think about with plants as well is that introducing them into the body, they don't always have the effect that pharmaceutical medicines have, like the quick effect. Some plants you need to be in relationship with and introduce to the body on a consistent basis, maybe for weeks at a time before you start to experience some regulation in sleep. Another plant that, again, could be its own category, but it's one that I've been in deep relationship with for many, many years is cannabis. So cannabis is really supportive for sleep, especially CBD. So that's non-psychoactive version of cannabis, but we don't need to get into all of that today. That's a whole other topic, but I've seen people regulate their sleep and get deep sleep with that specific plant ally. So I had to name her there, but
Thanks.
yeah.
And then one follow-up question. There was someone
Okay.
had asked about supporting brain health, and I just want to ask if I think you mentioned three when you introduced us to was it the nitrites, the ones for brain functioning? Can you repeat those three?
Oh, I think I was talking about like nutritive herbs. Is that what you're
Not the
hearing me say?
nutritive herbs,
I don't think
the ones.
I didn't cover brain health.
Sorry, nervous system, right? Um,
Nervous
yeah,
system, yes.
yeah, nervous system. So you would label brain as different.
Okay. Yes, but also this is where the categorization can get confusing. But yeah, so nervous system supportive plants, yes, can be very helpful for brain health, just because when we are in a more regulated state, our brain can function a little bit more clearer, right? But one that's coming to mind just in terms of brain health itself, yes, Salome, lion's mane mushrooms, which are not psychedelic mushrooms, but lion's mane is an incredible mushroom specifically for memory and for brain health. So that's one that I love to include in like an herbal coffee blend or like a cacao mushroom drink in the morning. Um, and yeah, Salome. So I also support people in utilizing mushrooms as well in their journey. So I can touch on that a little bit if people are curious about it. You can reach out to me, but Reed's gonna put some links in the chat of how people can learn more about my one-on-one services and support for folks. Um, but the reason I'll just say because you brought this up, I wanted to do this course, this 4-week course on relating with plants in this way, so that we can have this relationship to plants like chamomile or lavender or tulsi um, as a foundation to maybe relating to other types of plants in the future that might have even more powerful medicine for us or speak to us even louder. The skills that we're going to cultivate together in this course are relating to any plant or being in any type of ceremony, whether that's with a mind altering subby in relationship with plants. We want to know and hear what's going on in our hearts and bodies. That's just foundational for the ceremony of life, right? Life is a big old ceremony. That's what plants have taught me as well. So
Great. So I dropped two links, everyone. I dropped two links for contacting Lisa Marie in the chat. And I apologize. It says my internet connection's unstable. So if you want to schedule any type of consultation with her, there's a link specifically there to her online scheduling system. And then secondly, Lisa Marie does do some Substack writing. It's similar to blogging. And there is a link there to join that newsletter so you can get notified when she publishes a new article. So that's great. The last thing that I'll mention is that Lisa Marie, she's also put her email in there if you want to email her directly. Lisa Marie will be working with Grief Refuge in a collaborative effort to do a 4-week workshop series. And the information that she shared tonight, I'm sure that it will be able to be customized and tailored and done in a deeper fashion for your specific, for lack of a better term, healing. And that 4-week workshop is plant medicine for grief. I'm going to drop the link in just a second. And there's actually, we're going to open up a 72-hour period of like a discounted registration. And if you use the code plants24, you'll save, I think 25%. And so I'm going to throw that in the chat right now. Lisa, we're 10 after the hour. It's been fascinating information. A lot of people are thanking you in the chat. Any closing comments on your end?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I just am so grateful to be here with all of you and to share this. And um, yeah, all of this could, each thing that we touched on tonight could be its own 2 hour long conversation. But if any of this resonated with you, I just want to genuinely invite you to join us because we can dive into this even deeper as a group and learn some of these skills, practice them together, experience it, and then be witnessed and support each other. But regardless, I hope that you're able to walk away with some inspiration, some support that you can implement into your life and in your grief journey. And yeah, I'm just wishing you all the best. And please reach out if you have any questions. You can email me, that's in the chat. Um, one person saying, will it be recorded? So we will offer, like the sessions will be recorded for people who attend. And so you'll get a recording if like there's a session that you can't make. But yeah, we will be meeting.
And in addition to that, tonight's webinar will be shared on a YouTube channel. I can't promise it'll come out tomorrow, but hopefully within the next 48 hours. It's been a little crazy. And so, Lisa Marie, thank you so much for your wisdom, your body centeredness, just the fact of you being a presence in for us this evening has been a joy in and of itself. And everyone participating, thanks for your input. You know, thanks for your comments. Thanks for your resources. I'll be sharing a follow-up email that has all the resources mentioned in the chat. And there'll be a link to learn more about Lisa Marie's 4-week workshop at Grief Refuge. I can't wait. It's going to start in 2 weeks on January 30th. So grab that link and join and save a few bucks. We all could use that in the winter time after the holiday season. So thanks again. And please enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, and look forward to seeing you again in a future Grief Refuge webinar. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.